I'm at my kids' sporting event and I had to take a calming walk because I can really understand why people wind up throwing hands at these things. Like it just makes you crazy. And it had me thinking, so I texted my wife to be like, I miss you and I wish you were here, but I'm glad you're not here because she would definitely be throwing hands. And there's just something about how sports just brings out this craziness in us. And it got me thinking about this whole situation with Shohei Ohtani, right? The pitcher from Japan, and his interpreter, Mizuhara, turned out to have incredible gambling debts and had been raiding his friend and client's money to pay for those debts. I don't know if you know this, right? But gambling is on the rise in this country. It is, it took 30 years to establish in the diagnostic manual that psychologists use that gambling was even an addiction you could classify and treat as a mental illness, right? And even though it was determined that it is that, right, and that we shouldn't treat it as just some harmless vice, nonetheless, more than 30 states have legalized online gambling through your phone. I've interviewed people who suffer from that form of addiction. Now, I have my own addiction problems. Drinking was mine. Gambling, I fortunately don't have much taste for. But man, can I sort of recognize what this one guy said to me, which is that when he is a gambling addict, as he has been, and he goes off to anywhere, with a phone in his pocket, knowing that he could gamble on his phone, do a sportsbook bet on his phone at any time through FanDuel or any of those kinds of companies. He says it's like being an alcoholic who's forced to carry a fifth of vodka with him everywhere he goes. That hit me between the eyes, right? And so when I think about Shohei Ohtani and his interpreter Mizuhara, right, our temptation is to sort of blame those people. And obviously he's gonna, Mizuhara's gonna pay some consequences. But we got to remember, right, that like the entrapment that is gambling addiction for people is so strong, so irresistible, just as drinking for someone like me is impossible to moderate, and that's why I had to quit. I just think like we're in this weird place as a society where we think that it's the addict's fault, right? And that self-control is sort of somehow the answer, that there's such a thing as responsible gambling as the industry tends to preach. Meanwhile, right, we are just bombarding people who are susceptible to that kind of addictive impulse with the temptation. So anyway, I consider myself a very rational person, but having spent a day at a kid's sporting event and getting sucked into all the weird psychological garbage about like, how am I, that I'm somehow participating by being here, and that if I just cheer loud enough, it'll go right or wrong or whatever, and oh my God, they're misbehaving. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, just the psychological tatters that I am in right now, I don't know, it just reminds me, it's complicated. And the fact that we are working that part of of the brain of people who are specifically addicted to gambling on sports in such a strong way, I just think it's a shameful thing. It's a shameful thing.